We now know how to compute the edit distance or to compute the optimal alignment, but filling in the entries in the dynamic programming matrix. But it doesn't tell us yet how to construct the alignment, two rows with this first row representing the first sequence and the second row representing the second sequence. Here's an idea. Let's use the backtracking pointers that we constructed while filling in the dynamic programming matrix to reconstruct the optimal alignment between strings. We can start by noting that any path from 0, 0 to ij in the dynamic programming matrix spell an alignment of a I prefix of A with a J prefix of B. For example, let's start aligning the sequences, which means let's start traveling from the point 0, 0 to the point nm in our dynamic programming matrix. As soon as we move along diagonal edge, it will correspond to either mismatch or match. Then we'll continue using horizontal or vertical edges, and it will correspond to insertions or deletions. Then we will use, once again, diagonal edge. In this case, it is a match. And we'll continue by constructing the n alignment of two strings. Please note that the constructed path corresponds to distance 8 and is not an optimal alignment, because we know that the optimal alignment, our optimal edit distance is 5. To construct an optimal alignment, we will use the backtracking pointers by starting from the last vertex in this matrix, particularly from this vertex where the edit distance is recorded as 5. Using backtracking pointers, we see that there are two possible ways to arrive to this last vertex. Let's arbitrarily choose one of them. One of them of these ways correspond to a mismatch and another correspond to insertion. So let's arbitrarily choose a mismatch edge. It will correspond to mismatch between J and E. Then from the previous point there is only one way to move into this point, and it will correspond to an indel. We'll continue further, match, further, 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 and we will finally arrive to the initial point, at the same time constructing the optimal alignment between two strings. The output alignment pseudocode implements this idea. We simply look at the backtracking pointers that enters in the node ij. If we arrive to the node ij by using a vertical edge, that we will simply output the one column of the alignment with A of I in the first row. If, on the other hand, it corresponds to a horizontal edge, we output a column with B of j in the second row. And if it corresponds to a diagonal edge, we output a column of alignment with A of I in the first row and B of j in the second row. It appears that we actually need to store all backtracking pointers to output the alignment, but this slightly modified pseudocode tells you that you can compute backtracking pointers by analyzing entries in the dynamic programming matrix and thus saving a little space. Edit distance is just one of many applications of string comparisons in various disciplines that range from analyzing internet pages to finding similar genes. We started this lecture from the example of gene hunt for cystic fibrosis, one of the first successes of the Human Genome Project. If you want to learn more about comparing genes, protein, and genomes, you may enroll into Coursera specialization called Bioinformatics, or you can read the book Bioinformatics Algorithm, the Active Learning Approach.